This isn't a serious analysis video like the previous one. This is just a fun little power scaling video made to discuss a topic which has never really gotten any attention within the community for very reasonable reasons considering what type of show Mao Mao is. So I guess I'll be the first person to do so, and I'll of course be using evidence from the show itself to justify my placements. This is a power scaling tier list specifically, so the spots the characters occupy are based off of how capable I believe they are in combat situations relative to each other. Thus the relative factors will be general power, intellect, hacks, and so on. The list will only include characters who I believe have some feats or statements to go off for their combat history. Those could be either in canon or, if necessary, additional material from Parker Simmons. If I do that though, that'll be very rare. So regular sweetie pies like Old Blue, for example, will be completely omitted. Keeping this filter in mind leaves us with the characters you see down here. Now before we start the tier list, I think it's important for us to set our upper bound. So let's just... yeah, Shin Mao obviously goes at the very top, in his mech, of course. He casually wields a weapon that's way too heavy for Mao Mao to lift. His mech is entirely undamaged by a direct hit from a monster that's arguably comparable to Mao Mao in terms of strength, and overall, it's obvious narratively that Shin just completely eclipses his son in terms of power. Outside of his mech, he wouldn't even be considered for this list though. Regardless, I'd say his most impressive feat is causing irreparable damage to his son, more than any other character in the series ever could. Overall, it's rather clear that Shin Mao stands at the very top of this pyramid, but let's look at where all the other characters place, shall we? Let's start with the D tier. This tier consists of combatants who barely even made the cut, only making it here on a technicality. But I added them to ensure that this was an extensively researched tier list. First up, at the very bottom of D tier is Big Thumb Pete, who in the episode Thumb War was shown to, alongside Mao Mao, cause powerful tremors that spanned what seemed to be an entire city block within Pure Kingdom during their Thumb War, even overpowering Mao Mao at the very end. This is an impressive feat, I guess. Thing is, Mao Mao wasn't exactly at his best, as he wasn't wearing his gloves, and the narrative made it rather clear that if he had them on, due to various factors, he likely would have won. Additionally, he can't exactly fight with a thumb alone, and Pete clearly has no other combat experience or knowledge beyond the Thumb Wars, so putting him at the very bottom is a very logical placement. Right above him, but still at D tier, I'll place Ratarang. We've seen that he has some combat experience as a Sky Pirate, though it is minimal. He's mainly used as a living boomerang in combat. This experience and the fact that he isn't just relying on his thumb in combat makes me feel rather comfortable in placing him above Big Thumb Pete. But beyond that, he's very clearly the weakest Sky Pirate and not a real threat to anyone. Next up, we've got the C tier. In C tier, we have characters who are somewhat capable of combat. First up, at the very bottom of C tier, we've got King Snugglemane, who would, in all honesty, be terrible in combat situations. However, he's got more going for him than the characters in D tier, so I felt it was appropriate to place him in the tier above them. Snugglemane is shown being decently physically strong and rather agile as well. However, he doesn't have the mind required for combat and would probably go down at the first sign of pain, but neither Ratarang on his own nor Big Thumb Pete would probably be strong enough to make him feel any pain, though I think his placement above them is warranted. Above Snugglemane is Farmer Bun, as he was capable of briefly wrestling Mao Mao to the ground in the episode Sugarberry Fever. Impressive, but considering Mao Mao restrained him with a single arm in the next scene, I don't think he deserves a placement higher than this for it. From surrounding context though, it is hinted at that Farmer Bun is more experienced and capable than most sweetie pies, so that gives him an additional reason to be placed above Snugglemane. Next up, we've got B tier, and the B stands for bafflingly capable. And I get the feeling that the placement of at least one of the characters in this tier will genuinely baffle you. This is the only tier in the video where I'm not entirely certain of which order to go in, but I'll still do my best to rank them. Starting off with Boss Ostrich. Similar to every other Sky Pirate, he skills to being able to survive the crashing of their ship. He's also got far more combat experience in history than the likes of Farmer Bun, and his cybernetic enhancements allow him to acts as a cannon that's built into his body. Next up, I place Adorbat. While physically she is undoubtedly the weakest person on the list, shown to lose to Ratarang in close combat, she more than makes up for it in the areas she does excel at, those being her speed, bite strength, resourcefulness, and sonic scream. Her speed and agility are her greatest assets, with her being able to swiftly fly around her opponents to disorientate them while dodging their attacks and looking for openings to counterattack. She's shown outmaneuvering Boss Ostrich, Ratarang, and even Ramaraf on countless occasions. Her bite force is strong enough to hurt and damage colossal monsters, and what's most impressive is her sonic screech, which is powerful enough to send giant monsters flying, shake the earth, and destroy pillars. The durability isn't anything to scoff at either, taking no damage from being launched out of a cannon into a giant monster. Honestly, an argument could be made that she feels above Ramaraf too, which is why the order of this particular tier was very difficult for me to fully uncover. Right above the Dorbat, I'd place Kid Mao, which is a statement I'd assume would baffle most, but hear me out here. First of all, Kid Mao is faster, being able to set rocks on fire through a combination of his speed and strength, a feat the Dorbat didn't even know was possible. He's also more skilled, as it's shown he knew how to engage in sword combat, could form complex road traps, and was able to take out the monster on his own. His durability feats are also more impressive, as he's shown being able to take direct hits from a monster, and survive being attacked by an entire mob of people, one of which was actually a member of the Mao clan. He's also already wielding Geraldine at this age, which leads me to believe the only advantage a Dorbat really has over a 5-year-old Mao Mao is agility and potentially her sonic scream. Either way, placing Kid Mao above a Dorbat seems narratively appropriate, considering the power of Mao's family and the Dorbat's bewilderment at Kid Mao's abilities in Lonely Kid. So for our final placement in D tier, we've got Ramaraf. Ramaraf is depicted rather clearly as being the main muscle for the Sky Pirates, aside from Rang and the Snake himself, of course. So her placement over Boss Ostrich seems rather intuitive. However, her placement relative to the kids is a bit of a struggle to fully figure out. I would personally place her above them, as in general, it's shown that in a direct confrontation, Dorbat couldn't beat Ramaraf, always needing luck and her superior intellect to take out the cyborg giraffe. I feel like placing Ramaraf above the Dorbat and Kid Mao is a rather fair placement for this. Now we get to the real fighters, the A tier and above. The fighters listed in this tier have been depicted as serious threats to the world that the story takes place in. So let's go over them. Starting off with Orangasnake. As the leader of the Sky Pirates, he's also the only one of them that's any form of genuine threat towards the main cast, occasionally managing to go toe-to-toe with an extremely casual Mao Mao, and more commonly being able to go toe-to-toe with Badgerclops in combat. His weapon can shapeshift and create barriers, and he's shown time and time again to have a high level of durability, surviving being kicked by Mao Mao into his own ship so hard it took down the entire thing. And he's also shown to have an immensely high pain tolerance, being able to continue battle even though every single bone in his body was fractured. All in all, his placement here is rather logical. He definitely beats anyone from the lower tiers with basically no issues. Right above Orangasnake, I'll be placing Badgerclops. As Mao Mao's co-hero and best friend, he's gotta pack quite a punch to defend himself and be relevant in battles. Luckily for him, his robot arm gives him consistent scaling above even the likes of Orangasnake. Anytime he appears serious, Orangasnake cowers in fear, further solidified by the episode Captured Clops, where after joining the Sky Pirates, he effortlessly took over as their new leader because they all feared his power. Badgerclops is the first person on this list with enough power to take down the Sky Pirates airship, as the blast from his robot arm were able to do just that in the first episode. Not to mention the large variety of other weapons and tools he has access to with his robot arm, giving him a lot of options in combat. It's also shown being very strong, capable of lifting large boulders. He's also hinted at being a rather decent threat to larger verse as a whole, having amassed a rather large bounty for himself during his time with the Ticket Thieves, and having destroyed an entire village after being insulted by one of their inhabitants. Now we've finally reached the S tier. Well, this is where the S tier should be, but I've decided to call it the low Mao clan tier to be a little bit more descriptive. Unlike the other tiers, I'll be going from the strongest to the weakest in this tier, mainly because most of the people that are in this tier are here because they scale to the strongest in this tier in some way. Well, without any further ado, the strongest character in the low Mao clan tier is Mao Mao himself. Our titular character is completely overpowered within his own story, so far at least. Let's go over what makes me think so. In the episode Sick Mao, Mao Mao was deadly ill. Despite being this sick, Mao Mao was more than strong enough to hold his ground against and overpower a blast from an ice dragon. This same ice dragon could effortlessly overpower Badgerclops' plasma cannons, a blast stated to be 100 times stronger stronger than his typical blasts. Mao Mao is consistently depicted as far stronger than Badgerclops and the Dorbat, as well as every single member of the Sky Pirates. In this same episode, Mao Mao was depicted as the only one capable of easily breaking out of the ice from the Ice Dragon. In the episode Sugarberry Fever, Mao Mao moves past the Dorbat and Badgerclops and destroys the entire sheriff security system before they could even react to what was happening. Also consistent with how he's depicted overall. And while tired from the events of The Perfect Couple, he was still able to casually kick Orangasnake into his own ship, hard enough to take down the entire thing. In the episode Adore Dad, Mao Mao was shown mostly unaffected by Adorbat's sonic scream, and in Zinger Heartouts, Mao Mao was strong enough to push through an amplified version of Adorbat's sonic scream. Even after he put down his weapon, he still effortlessly defeated all the Sky Pirates while they were, fused, I guess. Based off of statements, this state was notably more dangerous than Orangasnake himself. Speaking of Mao Mao's sword, I've barely even mentioned Geraldine when it comes to how strong he is, because even without it, he'd absolutely get an entire tier above all the other characters on this list. He basically takes every category. The Mao clan must have some crazy genes if the rest of them are all much stronger than this. Now on to the characters that I consider to be on this tier as well. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Tanya Keys. She is presumably the first person Mao Mao was close to after Bao Bao's betrayal, and she most certainly has the power, abilities, and stats to justify her placement right behind him on this team, despite only having one appearance. Her chase in her debut episode displays that she's more than capable of keeping up with Mao Mao's speed, though it is rather clear that he is a little bit faster, as even after being distracted, he can catch up rather easily. Though, she didn't really want to get away either, as it's revealed that she's doing this all to have a little bit of fun with him. Regardless, one scene where Mao Mao took out all of her duplicates displays that he is faster than her, but she's clearly not far behind him. The entire conflict of the episode exists because she managed to capture Badgerclops and easily carries him around the kingdom. It's later revealed that Badgerclops wasn't really restrained in any way. Also very clearly did not want to go to prison, yet he made absolutely no attempt to escape, fully relying on Mao Mao to come save him. This shows rather explicitly that she skills above the Badger as well, as if he was not entirely outmatched, he would have made an attempt to escape. Though she has really good speed and presumably decent attack power, her main weapon is her abilities, which includes making illusions with a solid form, storing things within her leaves, and shapeshifting, as well as successfully stealing Mao Mao's hearts, keeping it despite all the years they were apart, a feat which is completely unmatched by anyone else in the series. These abilities basically allowed her to dance around and play with Mao Mao for the entire episode, and could even allow her to make a small army of herself, though he did assert that if they were to settle it in a one-on-one fight, he'd win. Considering his past experience with her and the fact she didn't really argue with that, I'm willing to bet that this is true. Regardless, I absolutely believe Tanya's placement this high on the tier list is very well earned. Right behind Tanya, we've got Bao Bao. Across Bao Bao's many appearances, there's always been an emphasis on how strong the dog actually was. Though his feats on his own are basically just displayed as being very strong, with Badgerclops being completely caught off guard by how strong he was. From what we're shown, he's basically equally matched to Mao Mao when it comes to physicals. He's always shown as being just as fast and even just as strong as Mao Mao. So why do I rank him below Mao Mao and Tanya instead of equal to Mao Mao? Well, he's not smart. Well, he's smart, but for dog standards. Bordering human levels of intellect, yes. He can spell and communicate comprehensively through barks, but he's not gonna be as capable in combat as someone experienced with it like Mao Mao, or as versatile as Tanya. Speaking of, he's also very limited in what he can do, having no special abilities beyond very high physical stats, while Mao Mao has a ton of special moves with his sword, and Tanya has her complex, overpowered hack. So despite his high power level, when it comes down to it, he just doesn't compare to the other two on this list. Yet he's still definitely above those below him. As for Mao Mao's sisters, well, obviously they skill above Mao Mao himself, but how they skill relative to each other is entirely speculation, with no real evidence to say where they'd be placed beyond their sizes and assumptions based on their abilities. Brunhilde, Amala, and Contacts go into the high Mao clan tier based on their sizes and gimmicks. Super speed is completely overpowered, magic is completely overpowered, and Brunhilde seems to be some sort of super warrior, walking cat tank. But between these three, I believe their placements are interchangeable, with no definitive answer as to who's stronger. I do, however, believe Minori and Bangles are weaker, due to how much smaller they seem to be. I put them in the mid-Mao clan tier, with Minori being above Bangles due to experience, as she appears to be the oldest. And with that, we are done. Thank you all for watching this video. It took a long time to edit, pretty long time to record, longer than I was expecting, but still ended up being fun. You can find this tier list in the link in the description, so feel free to make your own tier list if you disagree with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for future videos. I have several more in mind, one of which is probably going to be more of my The Lonely Kid videos. Anyway, goodbye everyone, love you!